Tyler from Radius here. We are working on massively scalable stablecoin infrastructure. When we say massively scalable, we're talking about processing transactions in the millions of transactions per second. So one of the questions might be, why on earth do we need that much bandwidth? Don't we have plenty of L1s, plenty of L2s that have plenty of block space? We'll get to that, and we'll talk about why we think such scale is important. One of the things we're focused on is agentic commerce, like some of the other folks on this call. And that means a lot of different things to different people. For some people, that means, Claude, find me the best running shoes for under $100 and make that purchase. That's potentially a valid use case. There are payment methods that work for transactions like that pretty well today. What we're particularly interested in is microtransactions. We've seen a lot of agent use so far today. So we're really interested in giving agents the tools to make microtransactions, buy a bit of data, buy a little bit of inference, buy a little bit of compute, just buy a microservice or a micro bit of data for maybe a penny, maybe even less. So that's what we're working on here at Radius. And we hear people talk about what this might look like, what these microtransaction economies might look like. What we wanted to do is show what it might look like from a company's perspective who might want to open up their services to agents. So what we're looking at here is a fake company called EdgeMeter. We're looking at the back-end ops site. You want to think about it like that. They provide security and risk assessment endpoints. So we can see like a threat intel endpoint based on IP address, a bot score, et cetera, et cetera. So right now, EdgeMeter is set up like a lot of companies are, subscription-based. We can see on this graph here that some hits are human clicking buttons, some are a big chunk more are API hits, but they're all gated currently by subscriptions. And what EdgeMeter is doing, same thing as a lot of other companies, they have a 403 block policy when it comes to bots. So bots try to hit the endpoint and they just get rejected. So we can see the yellow. This is a hypothetical for how much bot traffic is being rejected. And this is a big problem for a lot of companies because according to Cloudflare, as much as 50% of web traffic nowadays is bots. And if you're using Claude or Codex as much as I am, that's probably only going to go up. So what if there were a way to monetize this agent demand? And we've seen this from some of the other demos, but I'm going to turn on X402 here. So we see some of this website come alive. We have some per request pricing now on these endpoints. So we can see less than a penny on all of these. And we can see the system is just waiting for settlements to happen. So we have this little console here on the right, and I'm going to chuck a bunch of traffic at these endpoints. So these are real endpoints. The data is dummy, but the endpoints are real. And what you're about to see is real transactions going through on the Radius main. So I'll click launch and we'll approve that in MetaMask. And here we go. So we can see these transactions being settled in real time on Radius. So we can see the revenue accruing in real time. So this becomes very interesting when you're not just blocking bots, you're actually providing paid access to services for bots. So we can see the transactions coming in. You can check out Radius and our Explorer to view the individual transactions if you so choose. You can see the revenue accruing in real time per. Okay, so this is cool. I think this immediately becomes interesting to almost any of us hosting subscription-based services or many types of subscription-based services. But how hard is it to get here? So it's great. Revenue accruing in real time, that's awesome. But how difficult is it to get here? That's also one of the things we're working on at Radius is making things very simple to spin up for agents. Many of us are using agents. We've seen that a lot on this call. So it's crucial to make it easy for agents to do this stuff automatically. So to actually get to what we saw on the previous page, you need an agent. The agent needs a wallet. It needs funds to pay for the resource. And then on the other side, the seller needs to have an endpoint and it needs to put X402 in front of that and it needs a wallet where it's going to receive the funds. So we have two sides, the buyer side, we have the seller side. So we're going to go ahead in real time here, and I'm just going to copy these prompts off a clipboard so you guys don't get to mock me for my poor typing abilities. We are going to, and what we're about to use here are some skills that Radius has put out there publicly. It's an open source repo. I'm sure someone will link to it in the chat. So what we're doing here is we're creating and deploying. Okay, love demos. Love demos. All right. Let's see if we can log in real quick here. All right, back. Let's see if we're noodling. All right, and we're live. So that was all planned. That was just to prove that this is actually Claude and not a recording. So in this prompt, in this window, the white window, we're deploying a dummy X402 end. And as we can see, as it's working through, it's going to use Cloudflare to do that. I didn't specify that, but it's just going to use a Cloudflare worker. And on the bottom here, I'm going to spin up a wallet for an agent. So this is a separate agent. On the bottom, we're simulating the buyer side. It doesn't have a wallet. So we're telling it to create a wallet and hit a mainnet faucet to get funds. So we actually have a mainnet faucet on Radius that agents can hit and get little 1 cent drips of funds. So while these are going, we've put these X402 skills out there exactly for this purpose. We want to make it easy for Claude, for Codex, for Hermes, for whatever harness you're using to tap into these tools and seamlessly integrate with Radius. We have skills to just do general transactions with Radius, but we're really focusing on X402 because we think this is going to be a good way to monetize some services and use cases that weren't previously monetizable. So we're really interested in that. So we can see on the top, it's about done. It deployed the service to Wrangler, some checks. On the bottom, we successfully created a wallet, and now it's moving on to the faucet to get the drip. And on the top, we see that the dummy endpoint was deployed and verified. So it is live. This is a live endpoint. So we had no endpoint previous to this. And we'll give the buyer agent a second. Like it's almost done here. And then we'll try to hit this endpoint. All right. And that's done. So on the buyer agent side, on the bottom here, it went from not having a wallet to having a wallet. And then it hit the Radius faucet, and we can see the transaction ID here, and it received 1 cent of SBC. So 1 cent may not sound like a lot, but when we start thinking about these pay per request use cases, that's actually fine. We looked at the price points on the previous slide. And when you look at Radius's transaction fees, we can actually process transactions for 1/100th of a penny. So this is enough to pay for 100 transactions on Radius. So I'll just tell the buyer to access the resource located at, and we'll be specific, API/dummy. And again, it's calling the Radius X402 skill that we have out there. Checking the endpoint, checking the cost, and the faucet transaction and the transaction that you're about to see are mainnet transactions on Radius. So super important to make these processes seamless. Definitely encourage you guys to check out our Radius skill and submit PRs if you have suggestions, or reach out to us or what have you. But we're always looking to make these tools more robust and streamlined for agents and all that. All right. And it looks like we are almost there. Paid and accessed. So the transaction went through, payment accepted. Here's your dummy data. The secret, Claude's always given us a good little Easter egg here. The cake is a lie. So if any video game nerds out there, if you find that funny, yourself as a video game nerd, that's what we have here on Radius. So getting back to where we started, we just saw one transaction and we went from end to end deploying the selling side and setting up the buyer agent in 5 minutes or less than 5 minutes. So that's really cool. We saw one transaction. Now going back to the Swarm, that traffic generation fire hose chucked at our endpoints. If this sort of transaction activity, these X402, these MPP-based micropayments happen, any sort of volume, this gets any sort of adoption, you're rapidly looking at not just hundreds of transactions per second, not thousands, not hundreds of thousands. You're rapidly talking about millions of transactions per second, especially if you can get those fees low so that you can offer sub-penny services. So that's what we're working on at Radius. We're working on making a system that can scale to meet that demand. And then we're working on the tools to make it easy to plug into that network. So that's us. Let us know if you have any questions. Always happy to see what other folks are doing in this space.